Okay, hello. This is going to be um, a fairly basic tutorial on exploration, on using your probes, including the deep space probes, and some of the kind of aspects dealing with exploration. Um, this will probably run quite long, maybe 25-30 minutes, because we're going to go over several aspects of this, but we're not going to go into each aspect in a huge amount of detail. Um, the pros already kind of aren't going to be looking to this video because they already know how to scan. So this is going to be more for guys that are struggling with their scanning, want a little bit of help. Maybe you're not sure exactly what deep space probes do, and want a bit of information on them before they commit to the fairly long training time of Astrometrics 5. So this is going to go over some of these kind of fairly basic principles for your scanning, your exploration. You're looking for wormholes, combat sites, dead sites, radar sites, whatever it may be. Now, to begin with, I'm in some arse end of nowhere nullsec system. Came here because they tend to have some of the harder signatures to pinpoint, and so they can be a little bit better for tutorial purposes. So we see a little bit more interesting stuff. What I've got up here is my scanner, which you can get up by pressing this button down here, scanner, Alt D, Delta. So we've got the D scan here. You should be familiar with this. If you live outside of HiSec, you obviously got your system scanner, which is where we'll see our probes, and which is the main window we're going to be in here. Obviously up here I've got my overview, and I've got this on a PvP custom filter here. That way the only thing I see really is immediate threats, as well as gates, obviously, just for the navigation. And this syncs up with my D-scan, so if I go to this one here, start scanning, we start seeing all this shit that we don't need to see. We don't need this information here. All we want to know is immediate threats, so enemy ships, or any sinos that get dropped or anything like that, stealth bombs. And obviously, last but not least, local chat. You may agree or disagree with how much intel local chat gives, but for the time being, it's in the game. You can be sure your enemies are going to be using it, so it'll be madness not to keep an eye on local here, unless you see when anybody else is in system. Right now I'm alone, but throughout the day there have been people traveling through here, so we'll be keeping an eye on this, looking for anybody coming through that might stop and combat scan us or try and find us. So, currently at a safe spot. You always want to do your scanning from a safe spot. This isn't a very good one, as you can see. I'm right next to a big honking planet, but this is quite a small system, and safe spots are quite hard to make in a cov-up ship because they warp so fast. But look elsewhere if you want to know how to make safe spots. That's not what this is about. Just make sure that you're in a relative safe spot for your scanning, so that enemies are going to have to work to find you. A couple of other things. Obviously, I'm cloaked up here at the moment. We're going to begin this tutorial with the deep space probe, because this is normally, if you have them available, this will be the first step you take when you come into a system. You deep space probe it first, and then you will use your normal core probes, or sister core probes in my case, to actually locate and pin the sites. So keeping an eye on D-scan here. We know it's empty, but it's good to be in the habit of checking your D-scan anyway, so that it becomes second nature. First, there's a couple of numbers. You can see I've already gained these numbers here, and I'll show you how to get them. What we do is we go to our fitting, we go to our probe launcher here, and we go show charge info on the loaded probe. Currently I've got a deep space probe in, attributes tab, and then base sensor strength. So I've noted down the base sensor strength of my deep space probe, 12.1, and also of my sister core probes here, or core probes or combat probes, and they gave me a base sensor strength of 106.6. This information is crucial for the deep space probes, and also for the core scanner probes. You need a minimum core strength of 80 to scan, using 4 probes, to scan the hardest signatures in the game. So if you can use at least 4 probes, and you have a minimum core probe strength of 80, then you know that every signature out there you will be able to pin. It will be extremely difficult to pin the hardest sigs with only 80, but it is, technically feasible. But obviously, to make it easier, you want to increase your strength by working on your skills and things like that. How do you increase your sensor strength? There are several ways. Oops. That was stupid. There we go. The first one is you can use a faction launcher. I'm using an expanded probe launcher here rather than a normal probe launcher, and that is because the expanded probe launcher is required if you want to load in deep space probes or combat probes. Otherwise you can get away with a normal probe launcher. Now the faction ones, the sister ones, give an extra 10% to your scan strength. Same for your sister core scanner probes rather than normal core scanner probes. These give another extra 10% to your scan strength. These small gravity capacitor upgrade rigs, each of those give another 10% strength each. Your ship, in my case here a covert ops ship, gives a 10% scan strength bonus per level of covert ops, and it's 7.5% per level of racial frigate if you're in one of the Tech 1 scan frigates. There are also a couple of other skills. There are 4 skills that pertain to scanning. Those are astrometrics. Increasing that skill allows you to put more probes out at once. Really you want 5 to be able to properly pin sites. 6, 7 or 8, the maximum is just makes it a little easier. And at level 5 you are also able to use the deep space scanner probes. Then there are 3 other ones: astrometric, range finding, pinpointing, and acquisition. Astrometric acquisition will decrease the time it takes for your probes to do a scan. Astrometric range finding will, I believe, that one is increase your scan strength per level by 10%, and pinpointing will decrease the distance variation from your scans, which stops your signatures jumping around so much. I have those all at 3, apart from astrometrics itself, which obviously I have at 5, and I've only got covops at 4, so by no means maxed out skills. But I do have the rigs on and the faction launcher and probes, so it certainly helps. There are a few implants as well, but they stop being really that worth it because you can scan so fast already with only 106 strength. So those rigs would become perhaps important when you're combat scanning a hostile ship, and speed is the key there. See, we're looking at our D-scan. Notice somebody's coming to local here. He looks like a local from around here. I'll have to remain careful and on the watch. So, we're going to begin here with fire out a deep space probe and show you the results we get from that. So I'm going to quickly uncloak, fire that off. While we do a scan, I'm going to reload my other probes. Set this to 256 AU and run your scan. Let's keep an eye out here. We can cloak back up now. Here we go. Now this is the result that a deep space probe will give. We've got it at max range, so it's going to give us the weakest possible signal. And the reason we want that is because every time we scan this system, OHV here with a deep space probe will always be at 0.03% for my probe strength at 256. And over time, the wonderful people of EvE I've built up a table of what sites are at what scan strengths. So go to our browser here and look at this table, and I'll link this in the description to the video so you can get it as well. We put our deep space probe sensor strength up at the top here. We got that earlier, 12.1. We put the region we're working in Veil of the Silent. Apply that, and we can see now, so 0.47%, this is going to be one of these sites. 0.24, or show 0.23. There is a little bit of deviation, it's not a perfect table. That's going to be one of these, a 610 dead site perhaps, or one of these magnetometric sites. Excuse me. Like I said, as you can see, I've got a 0.03 and that doesn't show. That's most likely going to be these sites here, or these tables aren't 100% accurate, but they're pretty close, and they allow you to certainly narrow down what you're looking for. Now, if I was looking for this HPA crew Blue Pill production facility, and I wasn't interested in anything else, I can see, it spawns at the 0.02% signal strength band, so it's only going to be one of these two here, and it's never going to be any of these ones below with the higher signal strength. So I can immediately scratch those off the cards. I don't have to scan every single one. I know the only two sites that possibly have a chance of being this facility are these two. So I can ignore those results there. We're going to go for this PHV one. I scanned the OHV one earlier and it was, so I'm going to do this one instead this time. But yeah, this is a great web page to have. You can change it for high sec, low sec, null sec, or wormhole. You can change your LADAR region if you're looking for LADAR gas. This is very incomplete information. If you are searching for LADAR, click Tenal. Tenal has the information in there. The clouds that don't have NPCs guarding them, they all spawn at the 0.06, or roughly thereabouts, depending on your probe strength, signal bracket there. Unfortunately, just not many people look for those sites, and so this is an incomplete table of results, but it is, like I say, very close and a very useful asset. There is also another site, LADAR site list. If you're looking for LADAR, this tells you the regions and the hotspot constellations, where this, certain gas regions are, if that's something you're interested in. Again, I'll throw that into the description of the video so you can have a look there and see it. But for now, we're going for these two low signatures here. We'll start with PHV. We'll probably only do one, and I'll show you what we do to get this. So we can now pull in our deep space probe. We no longer need it. We've already got the results we want. What we'll do is we'll note these both down, PHV and OHV. It's just using a notepad. It can be very handy having a notepad up for a lot of things, not just for scanning, but if somebody tells you a system, you can drop the link in here. If you're charting, names that came through here, you can just drag their names into your notepad, so you've got a record there. Very good to throw just temporary information up here, rather than getting a pen and paper, which obviously is just retarded when you sat at a computer. So, our probes are back in. We're going to uncloak and put out all the core probes that we are able to launch. For me, that is all 8, so I'm going to do that now. I'm going to be careful because this takes a few seconds to fire each one off. So, make sure you're in a safe location, because you're going to be uncloaked for the duration of this. It'll take a few minutes, but just keep an eye on local and be ready to cloak back up if need be. I'm gonna reload my deep space probes while I got a chance. So we've got all our probes out here, and once I've reloaded and I can recloak, there we go. We can go into the map. While you're cloaked, you're pretty much impossible to find. You cannot be probed or scanned, and the only way to find you is to come within 2.5 kilometers of your location and force you out of cloak. near impossible in a system, you know, 500 million kilometers across. So, and this is a small system. So we've got all our probes. They're all in the same location right now. They're all at 32 AU, and this is let's get rid of that. This is how we're going to start. Scan. Let's have a quick look on our D-scan. Nothing there. Local's clear. So to begin with, what we're going to do is move our probes out from each other, and we're going to put one in each cardinal direction, where these arrows are pointing, and then we're going to put one above and below as well. If you don't have, this many probes out, maybe you can only use 5. You won't obviously put one above and below. You'll just keep put one at each cardinal direction. That means north, south, east, west, and then keep one in the middle. Here we go. We've got 4 outer ones there. I'm going to put one up above and below. Doesn't have to be exact, but just thereabouts. And we have one in the middle. Ideally you want 5 probes, one in the middle and one at each corner. If you've got 7, then you're lucky enough that you can put 1 or 2 above and below. I actually have 2 in the middle, just because I do. It doesn't really help, so that's 8 and 3 in the middle. So I'm going to highlight these 2, and I'm going to put them down to one size below the maximum, below my outer probes. So they're down at 16, and the rest are at 32, which I've highlighted now. What I'm going to do is hold my left Alt key on my keyboard, that's left Alt, and then I'm going to click and drag all of my probes in. As you can see, I'm doing this. All of them in so they overlap the center probes. Like that. This gives us an extremely well-focused central focal point of our scanning probes here. And this will make it much easier to pin the sights. It'll make them, it'll prevent them from jumping around so much, particularly with this many probes out. And this is going to make it much easier and much smoother to pin the sights. It's absolutely crucial that you have these probes overlapping like this. So let's run a scan. I'm going to concentrate on PHV here. So we'll run the scan. Yeah, we've got 2 dots. We're only interested in PHV right now, so we'll highlight that. So we just see the PHV result. Now this red dot, every single one of my probes can currently pick up this signature here. And between them all, they extrapolate a position and represent it as this red dot here. Now what you want to do for the best results is get that red dot aligned up with the center of your formation. Now it's already, aligned enough, but I'm just going to make it a little bit more precise just for for video purpose. What I'm doing is holding my left shift key, and then I can move all my probes without disturbing the formation like this. That should be close enough. I've got that right in the middle there. Now what I'm going to do is, starting with my inside probe, or probes, I'm going to shrink them down 1 notch. And then my outside probes, I'm going to shrink them down a single notch. Again, keeping them one size above the middle ones. There we go. And then again, holding my left Alt key, I'm going to constrict all of these in over the middle probe. Our formation has remained intact and nice. Run another scan. And you will repeat this process all the way down until you're down at 0.25 AU. Now this signature, because it's a particularly hard signature, will require a slightly different step as we get towards the end, but most signatures you'll get before you shrink them fully all the way down. As you can see, our signal strength is starting to increase. The dot has moved a little bit, so we're going to realign, holding our left shift. We're going to drag the formation so it's nice and lined up. with our red dot. It doesn't need to be this precise when you're doing it, but like I say, I'm just kind of doing this for tutorial's sake. We're going to shrink our center probes again, down another stage, and then our outside probes down one more notch. Hold our left alt, drag them all in. There we go, set for yet another scan. Let me see. Okay, our PHV is showing here. It is jumping around quite a bit, but we're starting to narrow down on it. As you see, our OHV is not in our center bubble. We're not focusing on this right now, which is why it's straying around so much. But you can see that the dot is down here, let's say on the right side here. It's not inside the center bubble at all. That means that center bubble is not picking it up. We can see it's not in this top bubble at all. That top bubble is not able to pick up that signature. And that's why this red dot has moved. Which means only I think these two bubbles, this one and this one, are currently picking it up. Possibly this one as well. Oh yeah, and this one. My bad. But the ones on this side are not, which is why it's moved to this right side. So in this case, you know, we would move our formation there to try and get better coverage of it. But remember, right now we're working on this one instead. This one did stay within our center bubble. It did move quite a lot, but it did remain within the center bubble, which means all of the probes are picking it up, so we're getting a fairly good strong signal there. That was close enough. Now, as you shrink further and further in, your view stops being centered over your probes, and it can be quite problematic later. So what you can do is highlight your middle probe there, double click it, left click on the mouse, and now your view is centered around your center probe. It can help quite a lot, particularly when you get zoomed right in. Your view goes way out of line. Once again, we're shrinking down. Okay, mouse check. Scan. Now I've been keeping one eye on local all the time, and I've been kind of neglecting my D-scan here. This is because I'm showing clear and local, but if there were more people in local, I'd probably be checking this D-scan every 5 or 10 seconds as we go through. Okay, here's another good thing. Is it our PHV? No. Okay, our PHV signature has moved way over to the right here, which means excuse me, you know, we're beginning to lose it. We're going to need to move our formation over it. Again, like I said earlier, these bubbles in this half are not picking up the signature, which means it's over here somewhere further into the center. Now if we look at this one, OHV signature, this is showing a circle. This means only 2 probes are picking up this signature. The best way to deal with this would be to maneuver your formation kind of right into the middle of that circle. It can be quite tricky to get it just right. And usually firing off a scan from that position will get rid of the circle and put it back down into a single point. If it still, you know, keeps staying as a circle, you'd want to put the size of your probes back up a notch. So I'd maybe put these to 8 and 4, and try a scan at a further out distance until you know, my red dot stopped moving around so much, and then begin shrinking down again. But that's what this is. That is only 2 probes picking it up, and the red circle there shows the intersect between those 2 probes. Back to PHV though. I'm going to align over PHV. Okay, it should be okay. Shrinking down. can see now. My view is starting to become unaligned. So again, just click my probe there to get it centered. Again, I'm being very picky, making sure the red dot is perfectly aligned with the center, and that's not quite necessary. You know, a little margin of error is totally fine, as long as it's within the center there somewhere. Okay, again, this is jumping around a lot. Oops, bring this up. Okay, that's close enough. I'm going to try another scan at this size to see if this moves around a little bit more. This is why I need my astrometric range finding up a little bit. Or is it pinpointing? I forget. Whichever one drops the distance deviation, it stops them bouncing around quite so much. Okay, this is starting to stay fairly stable now. So we'll shrink down again. As you shrink down, your probe has to search a smaller area, and in doing so, it gains a huge amount of strength every time you shrink it down, and that's why we have to shrink down, starting from a big signal to a small one, so that we can narrow down our search and get a stronger signal on these positions. We're starting to get there now. Keep an eye on D-scan. Obviously local's clear, so it's not so necessary. Okay, now you see our red point has changed to a yellow kind of tack or pin in space. This is because our signal strength has surpassed 25%. When you do that, when you surpass 25% signal strength, the group here will then be displayed. So magnetometric, LADAR, unknown, and so on. We can compare this here. So we were searching a 0.02 signature, and we found it's a magnetometric. So this is going to be a pristine Garista battle remnants. That's assuming obviously that this table is correct, which it may not be. But it is going to be one of these sites here. Let's hope it is now. At 75%, we'll see the name, and then at 100%, we'll be able to bookmark the location and or warp to it as well. So, and this thing stopped jumping around now, so we can hopefully keep it centered, and we shouldn't lose it. You'll find it takes a long time, as you saw with me here, to get to 25 or above %. And then, we were stuck in the kind of 5-10% area. But then as soon as we got past 25%, it jumped all the way from kind of 10 to 30%. And we should get another big jump here as well with this scan. Let's see. Yeah. Huge jump up to 61% with very little movement now. We are homing in on this site. Now, obviously, to shrink these probes down any more, the lowest we can go is 0.25 AU. We can't, our next step is going to break our formation. We're not going to have this nice overlap. But don't worry, drop it down to 0.25. Make sure that the yellow icon there is kind of perfectly aligned with the center. Now in these last stages, it does matter that you're precise with your alignment. You can see that looks just about perfect. And again, holding our left alt, I'm going to drag these probes in. You can see here as they come to overlap, and we're going to get them to make a pocket there. It should do. And now we have like a super focused pocket in the middle here. All the probes are working at max strength. And this next scan should probably pin this site to 100%. We'll see. And it has. There we go. 100%. If you don't get it 100%, don't worry. You know, if you get it to like 92% or 99.9%, that obviously happens as a troll. You can again just bring your probes in even closer and closer and closer. But never put them all the way into the middle, but just get them closer and closer and closer like this. So you do a scan like that where they're almost all together and you have like a mega focused area. And that will pin the site for you. It will be difficult with 4 probes. Ideally you want 5 or 6 or more. 7's kind of optimal, 8's a little bit silly. Somebody else here. Keep an eye on them. Have a look at D-scan. He's not showing up. You want to keep an eye on that though as you're out here. You should be doing that anyway in null and low sec and wormholes. But yeah, that is it. We have now pinned this site, so we can save location. When you do this, you should date it. So what is the date today? 26. So I date them like this, so I can see the day, the month, and the year. And that way I know when I'm looking through my old bookmarks, you know, which ones are old ones. Was this from yesterday, or was it from 2 years ago? And save that there. And you can also just walk directly to it. We can recover our probes now. And yeah, we have found that site. It is fairly simple once you get your head around it. It's one of those things that looks complicated, but you know, it's not really that complicated, and it can be picked up pretty fast. You can find some good loot at these sites. Some of them can be very hard, particularly out in nullsec. You're going to need, you know, Tech 3s or well-fit battleships and things like that to clear some of these hard sites. Particularly the dead sites, I believe, are particularly difficult. Certainly way beyond me. Pretty much the only thing I have on this toon is scanning skills. But yeah, that's kind of scanning 101. We've covered the deep space probe and the normal core probes. I know very little about combat scanning, but I believe the kind of theory behind it is roughly the same, but you have a race against time because you know, your enemy can spot you and run away, so you have to be much quicker with it. Some of the guys that know a little bit about scanning already will know that you can, as you're scanning, you can sometimes jump to shrink your probes by 2 sizes each time, at least to begin with, to make it much faster. But you know, if you're a pro at scanning, you're not going to be looking at this guide. Another thing to note is signatures only appear, I think it's within 5 AU of a planet. They're never gonna, you're never gonna have a signature way out here. It's always going to be within 5 AU of a planet. So what you can also do is make your formation, shrink it down to like 4 AU on the outside probes, 2 on the inside, and just move it over each of the planets and scan. And jump into it straight like that. But that's kind of something that you would leave for when you're confident with your scanning, you're good at it, and you know how to react to any of the problems that you may face, such as getting the circle or split readings and things like that. But if you have any questions, just hit me up in the comments, or if you know who I am in game, you can obviously just message me, say hello and ask questions. And yeah, that's it pretty much, Scanning 101. I hope this is useful to you guys, and I hope you find a lot of good sites out there, and make a lot of money. Look, and goodbye. Bye safe.